Is this thing on?
Oh man, I can break through walls. I just can't seem to get this thing on.
I honestly feel like Mr. Incredible. I can tell you right now, when you have kids, you watch a lot less of The Office and a lot more Pixar. So I got The Incredibles on the brain. That's a side note. And on another side note, I probably look like I just came from a Comic-Con convention. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but you know, I definitely got to give love to my favorite movies. You've seen me in a Rocky t-shirt, and now you see me in an Indiana Jones t-shirt. Pretty cliche stuff, but you know, I love Indiana Jones. But anyway, welcome back to The Dumb Catholic. I'm Justin Watson. So today I want to talk about something that my wife and I have been talking about throughout the past few weeks. So right now we're in the Lenten season. We've been in the Lenten season for a couple of weeks, and like most Catholics, I'm sure, you know, I've had a pretty good Lent so far. Staying committed to giving up the things that I want to give up, and you know, I've fallen off the wagon a couple of times, but for the most part, it's been a really good Lent, really growth-filled. I'm doing a consecration to Saint Joseph in a new book, and that has been absolutely amazing. And I'm going to share a lot of that stuff on this channel down the road. I'll have a talk upcoming about Saint Joseph, the coolest saint you know nothing about, because I've been a cradle Catholic my entire life, and I'm learning things about Saint Joseph I never knew. So those videos will be to come in the future. But yeah, it's been an overall good Lent, but also with it being Lent, it's also cold and flu season. And like most people who have young kids in cold and flu season, your family's going to get it. So about a month and a half ago, my family had the flu, and now we're just getting over coughs and colds and ear infections and the whole 9 yards. And our kids are healthy. It's just, you know, that season of the year, and everyone's been doing really great. But, you know, one of the conversations that my wife and I have been having is that, you know, it's not exactly pleasurable to change gross poopy diapers or clean up throw up, or my kids, they really can't take oral medicine. The texture of it kind of makes them spit it back up. So we have to give my children suppositories. So I'm sure you think that's pleasurable. But yeah, you know, it's kind of funny because my wife and I, even though these things aren't necessarily pleasurable, they do bring our family, our marriage, and our lives great joy, because we know that we're lifting up the cross that God has given us, and we're living out our vocation, and we're doing it to the best of our ability, and we're offering up these unpleasantries or these small sufferings to God. And you know, the conversation we've been having is a lot of people confuse pleasure with joy. So that's what I want to talk about today. I think a lot of people fall away from the Catholic Church because in today's day and age, pleasure is at our fingertips. I mean, the pornography industry makes more money than all professional sports combined. You know, I mean, we have fast food of, you know, you could name 50 different fast food restaurants that are probably within a 10-minute drive of any home in America at your leisure. And there's so many things in our lives that just give us that instant gratification, instant pleasure. So I think it's true to say probably a lot of people have fallen away from the church because they've pursued other things thinking that they'll be happy, and they've confused pleasure with joy. So that's kind of, it's a real temptation. It's a serious temptation. But you know what's very interesting in regards to my story is there was some temptation of me pursuing a pleasurable life rather than pursuing you know, a vocation that God gave me. So when I was a kid, I grew up playing hockey, and I was a good hockey player. Now, I don't say that to brag or look at me. I say that because I just want to make a point and make the point quick. I have teammates who played minor league hockey, teammates who played collegiate hockey, and high-level collegiate hockey, and some guys I used to play hockey with when I was a kid are now in the NHL. So I don't say that to brag. I say that just to make a point. And my dream as a kid was to grow up and be a professional hockey player. And it's funny because now as an adult, I realize, man, it would have been nice to, you know, be able to do whatever I want to do when I want to do it, to enjoy the pleasure of playing a sport I love, to travel, to eat what I want, to not really have any responsibility. But that life probably would have been more of a pleasurable life than a life that actually brought me happiness, a life where I would be serving and doing God's will here on earth. In high school, I got pretty good at golf as well, and I got offered a couple of college golf scholarships. And I thought maybe, pursuing golf as a profession was something I want to do, whether that meant playing golf professionally or teaching it or whatever the case may be. But then I realized it was, again, just kind of a pleasure of mine that I wanted to pursue rather than a legit vocation that God was calling me to. Now, there are people that are inside of professional sports who are living legit vocations, but it definitely wasn't what God was calling me to. And so it's interesting. Now looking back, I realize even though in the moment it might not be pleasurable to give my child a suppository as they kick and scream and throw up in cold and flu season, but it brings lasting joy. So I think my challenge to a lot of the people watching this video would be, make sure you don't confuse pleasure with joy, because pleasure is always fading. I'm sure there are a lot of people who, and I've heard conversations of people who say, I just didn't need my faith to be happy anymore. Well, did you need your faith to be happy or joyful, or did you not need your faith in order to pursue pleasure? And in today's day and age, it's so easy to get the two of those confused because of how much our society makes pleasure things look like true happiness. But I can tell you right now, the only thing that's going to bring true joy or true happiness is a life centered around Christ, a life where you wake up every day and you try to live the Gospels to your spouse, to your children, to your neighbors and coworkers, to those around you. And if you're trying to pursue a life where you wake up and everything you do is just surrounded by pleasure, you're going to be left feeling empty. You're going to be left with that fading feeling always. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. It's kind of a deep philosophical point. It's very beautiful as the Catholic Church in the Lenten season. We spend a lot of time focusing on suffering and how suffering is not a bad thing, but that suffering is a good thing, and it brings us closer to God. It unites us to Christ and his sufferings during his passion and death, and it allows us to detach from this world so that we can just focus on the ultimate goal, which is in heaven. So if you're a person who maybe has confused pleasure and joy, my encouragement to you would be, go talk to a priest. Go get a spiritual director, or go have a good confession heard and talk with the priest and try to get guidance on how to make sure you don't confuse pleasure with joy. That way you can get back on the right track. If you're someone who knows someone who has fallen away from the church or kind of fallen from grace because they're pursuing pleasure and they think they're pursuing happiness or joy, share this video with them kind of as a friendly reminder, a loving invitation, a loving reminder that pleasure is always fading. The only thing that will bring us true joy is living a life completely and totally accepting our cross, taking up our cross, doing God's will and accepting God's will, and working towards heaven. So that's what I want to talk about today. Okay, I think that's it. I can't think of anything else. So I'm Justin Watson. This is The Dumb Catholic, and until next time, may God always bless you.
Okay, take this off before I trip.
Amen.